This is an upturn eye, but it's also a return eye. If you look at the hook from the top, it's got a return tang. I'm going to take my thumbnail, I'm going to stick it in there, and I'm very carefully going to bend it out. Not a long ways. You can snap these off real easy. You can actually see an air gap in between there. I'm going to attach the thread. I'm not going to cover up that return eye. I don't know, 6-8 turns. Then I'm going to bring the thread one turn after another right up to the edge of that return eye, and then I'm going to slide it all forward. Slid it forward. Now when I let go of this, notice it's about halfway down that return eye, right? I'm going to use this other white stuff.
What kind of hair is that?
Polar bear.
Polar bear hair. Yeah. You know why steelheaders like polar bear hair? It's translucent. It collects light. Very hard. Notice the angle I'm at. I'm at about a 45-degree angle with the stacker. So it's all collecting on the bottom. I want to get those tips as straight as possible, right? So I'm going to turn my stacker the other way because we're going to tie this in facing forward. Okay, just to show you, fairly straight. Pull it out by the tips. I don't want to handle it too much. I might handle it twice. There's once. Now, I'm going to grab this by the tips with the butts facing back, and I'm going to grab the butts, and I'm physically going to lay them against the side of the hook and just wiggle it back and forth until it goes in between the tang like this. This is really important. Watch what happens. My finger's white. It's white because I'm pressing against the shank with my thumb and the return tang with my fingers so it doesn't pop out. I can make one really quick wrap right now around the whole thing. Second, third wrap, and I can let it go and take a look at it. I want it no longer than the curve of the hook, and I can hold this back and go, I'm almost there, but it seems a little short to me. How I make it longer, I can hold the butts in place, grab it with my thumb and finger with my thumbnail on top of the turned up eye. Now if I rock this, hold the material in these fingers and rock this on top of the eye like that. I just pulled it about 1/4 of an inch. I can check it again. And it's right at the curve of the hook. So you can adjust it that way. If it's too long, you can pull on the butts and pull it through. Because I only have 3 wraps on here. Once I get the length I like, I'm going to very quickly make about 5 or 6 wraps because at back I don't want it to move. I'm going to pull the fibers out with my thumb and finger, and I'm going to trim them at an angle backwards. And just cut very slowly. I cut slowly so it cuts each one a different length as it's going back and creates a real nice little taper when I tie it down. So I'm going to tie this down. I'm going to go back to the point of the hook. Okay, I'm going to grab my brown hackle and my chenille, orange chenille. I'm going to take my red hackle and I'm actually going to straighten it out. Now, the only reason, you would never do this with a dry fly hackle, but these are going to be wet fly hackles. And what I want to do is I want to kind of line these things up so I can put them in between my thumb and finger like this. And I can pull them all off, about 20 of them, all at once. Okay? I can roll my thumb and finger and push those together, like so, and I have an instant tail. I want it about 1 times the hook gape from the point halfway between the barb and the point. I'm just going to lay this so you can see it against the side of the hook shank at a 45. My next turn, when I go over the top, it rolls it on top of the hook shank. I'm holding it up at about 30 degrees. I'm going to go back to a halfway point between the point and the barb and stop. Lift it up, and I've got 8/0 thread. You're going to have 6/0. You only should need a couple of turns. I may put 3 turns on here. I want to create a little bit of elevation on this. I know that Gene likes steelhead flies to tie them a lot too, and he knows a lot about them. So
Guarantees the wing will not pull out.
yes.
Hooks have been made a long time, these kind of hooks?
Oh, these hooks, yeah.
They've been around?
Yeah. There's 2 cotton pieces of thread that this other colored thread is wound around. And if you pull off about a 1/4 inch like that, and you lay it under the hook shank, and you tie it in, and then you pull it just a little bit so that when you go back, you're right at the base. Those 2 cords of thread with the orange chenille just at the base of the shank. Now I can take this and wind this forward one next to the other. And one of the things I like to do is I like to pull it back each time when I do it. It tends to make it look a little bit thicker. I'm using a small chenille here. Usually I like to use a large chenille on a hook this size. And that's so I can trim it a little bit more. Kind of like a full eye length behind the eye. And I'm going to tie this off on the bottom of the hook. Bring it down, I'm tying it off right now on the bottom of the hook. The reason for that is I'm going to put hackle up here and I'm going to want to lay the wing back. I don't want anything to impede that wing being laid back. Trim it off. Now we're going to take a brown hackle. We can use a pair of hackle pliers to do this. Okay. I'm just going to push my fingers forward on the stem just ever so slightly to line the fibers up. Push down and back. Forward, down and back. Forward, down and back. Forward, down and back. And you can see what happens. I mean, literally the hackle is doubled over itself. I'm going to go back and I'm going to do the very front only. Fold it down and back and hold on to it. I'm going to do the same thing we did on the last fly. I'm going to hold it right against the shank at a 45-degree angle and tie it in and take that thread right up to the base of the wing. Okay? I'm going to actually make 6 wraps. 2, 3 if I have enough room. 4. Yeah, we'll do 5 this time. Just ran out of room. I did 5 wraps. Where am I going to tie it off?
Right behind the
On the bottom,
On the bottom. Why?
because you're going to leave the white stuff. You don't want to impede the
Don't
wing.
want to impede the wing. That's exactly right. Just 3 quick turns. You can trim this as close as possible. I'm going to spread the hackle by holding the wing, and I'm just going to rock my finger back and forth. Start right in the center. Just going to rock it back and forth. I'm going to take this material and I'm going to pull it back. And I'm using 8/0 thread. You're going to find this easier to do with 6/0. But I'm also going to take my thumbnail and I'm going to push that so it's fairly flat going back. And I'm going to start making thread wraps right at the base. I'm going to keep making thread wraps here, and you're going to see what's going to happen. As I'm making these thread wraps, can you see where the thread is right now on here? It's actually forward on the white. If I let go of this wing right now, it's going to pop straight up. You have to keep winding this thread until it is perpendicular to the shank of the hook. So you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, that's a lot of wraps. Yeah, but I'm still going and still going and still going. And I'm using 8/0. You don't have to make this many wraps with 6/0. And I'm going to start wrapping again against the wing. I'm just going to keep building this up until I'm comfortable right about there that it's actually perpendicular, and then I'm going to round out the head and stop. And notice how it's really laid down now. Okay? That's what you want. You want that thing to lay down. You want a slightly propped up tail, and you want nice beard underneath of material. So you get a movement from all this stuff. And then I'm just going to whip finish. Now this is a steelhead fly, right? So I just did a 5-turn whip finish. I'm going to do another one because I want to build this head up just a little bit anyway. I'm using 8/0 thread. Double whip finish is like never going to come out. And then I'm going to put a little head cement on here.